Welcome to It Depends, a live show where we discuss everything you need to know about software development and technology in business. I'm Natasha, your host, and joining me today is our COO, Bill, our solutions architect at Atmosoft, CJ, and Brandon. Hi, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us. So today we will be doing some continuing our role playing from yesterday of the process of estimating a project. The project that we will be building and are finishing up today is an extended warranty vehicle registration form. So if everyone's ready, let's just dive right into it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. Okay, so where we left off was doing the warranty holder part because we finished the date of purchase, correct?
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So for this one, we need to collect all the customers' information. So that's going to be, name, of all the name, address, city, state, zip. So
Address.
yep, and yeah, zip code, and then if we want, we could do some validation on the address here. So we could add in something for there. That's a validation against an API to verify we have a correct address. Anybody think anything else?
If it's gonna validate through the address, could it autofill the zip?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we could do that. Yeah, for sure.
That's just
We could do like one of those things where you can search the address,
And actually, it
once
should
you enter
probably
your.
be, yeah. If you do the zip and then use the zip code, or actually no, you can't. You can't backwards to an address, because that's gonna be. But I mean, you could if you
No,
fill
but
in the
you could
zip.
you could have it so that when you type in your address, it kind of does that like search thing, and then you can select which address is yours, and it'll auto populate the rest except the unit number.
Yeah, let's do that one.
sure. So autofill.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then let's
Probably some
see.
contact info, right?
Huh?
Probably some contact info.
Yeah, yeah, actually, phone number.
Yeah, phone number, email.
Yep, great idea. Yep.
Okay.
And put phone numbers with the S. There you go. Anything else? No, I think that's it. All right, let's do estimations.
All right. Doing the complication stuff, right?
Yep.
Complexity.
All right, let's see. An API. Save it. Got the UI, got some validation, getting some JavaScript. Okay, I got one.
I got one as well.
Me too.
All right, CJ.
Let's start with Brandon this time.
I said 5
Said 5. Okay.
because
Anyone?
most of it's easy except for the address validation. That part complicates it a little bit more, so that's why I said 5.
Yeah, yep. What'd you get, Tosh?
I also said 5.
Me too. We're all in agreement.
Fantastic.
Okay, so that's it for that warranty holder one.
Yep.
Cool. And then we just have the form option: term, appearance, and windshield.
Right. Or yeah. Yep. So on extended vehicle warranties, usually you're selling something that protects the car, or you're selling something that protects the windshield. So, and that's the difference between appearance and windshield. Most of the time, some can have varying terms depending on the option. So if I sell like a bundle, I could have appearance with windshield. I could have 36 months of appearance and 12 of windshield. So that makes this part a slightly more complicated, because you basically have to address all those conditions, like what are the options available for the warranty? Are we doing appearance and windshield? Are there sub options for appearance? Are there sub options for windshield? or is the term equal across on both products? So if I get 12 on a or 12-month on appearance, I also have 12-month on a windshield, or is that variable? So I would say in this case, to be the most flexible, we probably need to design this with uh, uh, probably a checkbox for appearance and windshield, individual term items,
Mhm.
because you could have some warranty that has a windshield option, but you're not taking the windshield option. So, um, and then the terms, and then yeah. Anybody want to add anything else?
So the terms would be a drop down.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but
yeah.
we have the individual term, so like an appearance one and a windshield one.
Yep.
Oh, so this would go under each.
Yeah, yeah. So appearance would be a section, and then windshield would be a section too, and they would both
Yeah.
have individual terms. And then if the warranty didn't allow you to select variable terms, then you would just lock the term box for the windshield option, or I
Or
don't know.
even just hide it.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Actually,
there's
this
only
this
one.
one's kind of complicated. Maybe we should write this out. So the requirements for the forms option should basically be. So we could do this simple. No, I think we're going okay. So we're just kind of envisioning what the form options look like right now and what we want to support. So, well, actually, we don't need to complicate it with individual terms right now. We can just have you can buy appearance or you can buy checkbox, and then we're gonna do the same terms. Because we don't have the specific requirements stating that we need to support separate terms.
I'm just
Then-
saying that these drop downs should not be able to be like messed with until the checkboxes are clicked on.
Yeah.
That's all I'm writing down.
Yep.
In case you can't see because of that. There we go.
Okay. Then, all right. I think that's. Brandon, you got anything else we'd want to put on here you can think of?
No.
No. All right. So, all right. Let's do our estimation, and then after we do this, or sorry, our complexity. After we do the complexity on this one, then we'll go through and do the estimations, and then we'll maybe do write out the or do you want to write out the individual tasks, like the actual work, or just actually, you know what, we'll just do the complexity, and then we'll sit down and see if we can try to put some times to each one of these work items.
Yeah, I think we just needed to get down to the estimation part. Like that's the main thing that
Yeah.
we're doing
Yeah.
for this.
Yep, agreed.
Alright.
No, I just didn't want to share how far we wanted to walk this down the trail.
Yeah.
This is kind of like what we're doing here. Just so everyone can be clear, is we're just trying to figure out what work we're going to do. We're doing a rough outline of tasks of what we think would be accomplished to implement each one of these features or user stories, and then we're estimating what we think the complexity would be. The second round of this would look like where we'd actually get some actual tasks broken down, and then they get those assigned and that kind of thing, like when we're working in script. This is like the initial pre-planning phase, where we're just working out, make sure everyone's on the same page, and we're all heading in the same direction. Anyway, for this one, I'm gonna go. Yeah.
All right.
I got a number.
I got one too.
Yep.
Let's start with Bill. I think
All right.
start with
I picked 8 based off of similar work we were doing up above with the customer. I feel like this one's a little bit harder because there's more complexity in the UI, and there's more options that we have to support here. So I figured the programming logic on this would be a little bit harder than what we did, even with the API validation on the other one. So I picked 8.
Okay. Natasha?
I also picked 8.
Okay. Brandon, you?
So I picked 5 again, but I could see it being an 8. Especially because like this is the most of the complexity with this issue or this task for me comes with like communicating with the customer, like the person who wants this done. as far as the actual work itself, like writing out the logic and having it function the way that we need it to, just based on what we have here, it's not super difficult in my eyes.
Okay.
Yeah, I could see a 5 there too. I was just thinking, like, as this evolves, it could get well. Actually, we know from personal experience, this gets super complicated.
Yeah, I was
Especially
thinking,
when you have hundreds of warranties and different types, and you're doing combos and you're doing bundles, and there's other products you can add on, like Rust Guard, Sound Guard, and Clear Plate, and a bunch of different other options you can kind of add on.
Yeah, but still, the complexity mostly comes from communicating with the customer communicating what they want, and us being able to implement it. Like they can tell us what they want, and we can implement it, and then they decide that's not what they want anymore.
Yep. Or they come out with something later, and it's
and then we have to change it.
Yeah. Like, oh, we want to do windshield with Sound Guard, So now you have an appearance product, and they're saying like, oh, we want to have that sold with the windshield, and you're like, okay, and so then the logic can get messy here, but yeah, I agree.
Sure. Okay, then we're done with that. So then, do we want to get to time?
Yeah. Let's see if we can put some time to this. All right. So on decoding the VIN, let's see. If we take into consideration, let's assume that we have the API already figured out, or sorry, that was one of the tasks. So including doing the research for the API, the UI, the what was it called today? I did something. The API layer, and then wiring it all up. I would probably say, okay, I have a number. We'll see how wildly difficult. And keep in mind, we said it was a 5.
Yep.
All right.
Okay. Anybody still need a second?
I don't think so.
Okay. Let's start with Brandon this time.
Oh no.
You got this.
Okay, I would estimate for this like 8 to 10 hours. I could probably get it done in 1, maybe 2 days, work days.
Okay.
And that's all you're working on, right? Like if you were doing this.
Yeah, if this is all I'm working on, yeah.
Okay.
If I'm not doing anything else.
Are there any likely scenarios that are going to prevent you from hitting that target?
It would depend on what library we're using for UI. If we're using Telerik, there's a good chance, because I struggle with Telerik, there's a good chance that it would increase the amount of time it takes. But if someone else is doing the UI, or if we're using something simpler like just basic HTML5 or Bootstrap, I could probably figure it out.
Okay, so it'd be completely dependent on the UI.
Yeah, figuring out the API shouldn't be that difficult. I can do that pretty quick.
Okay, cool. How about you, Tasha?
I said 12 is what my estimation was with dedicated to it. Like I figured like about 6 hours a day, and I could get it done in like 1 or 2 days. So I thought like 8, and then I was like, I'll double it. So that's what.
Okay.
I've had 16. And then
that's a valid methodology. I wrote about that the other day. Like, there's a lot of people that do that. Here's my number, and I'm going to double it, and then that should include any kind of buffer time. I like the fact that you didn't take a full double; you took a half. Well, so you quartered it basically.
Yeah.
Added 25% onto your estimate. I like that. I like that methodology because I think you can kind of get closer. All right. I was thinking 3 days. Because if you're running any problems with the VIN decoding API integration, or if you decide, like we talked about this yesterday, the Data One is a provider who does VIN decoding. If anyone's interested, you can go check them out. If you need to do VIN decoding, we used them in the past. They work well. They have 2 ways to integrate with them. One is via the API, which is what we said we were going to use. But there's another way to do it where they basically push files to you every day. It's a flat file upload. which is a process that we've used in the past. And so depending on how the API integration goes, that could either go fast or you could have some problems with it. And then I was more worried about the external integration, which is why I added in extra time. Because sometimes you can just run into problems like if they don't have their cores set up correctly and you can't make cross-domain calls from JavaScript from the browser. You can run into a bunch of things like that. Now if we set this up to where we basically just had our back end or our middle layer call over to the API, get the data back, and we weren't making a direct call to that API, which is probably how I would do it. We would get a little bit more control there. But so I added in a little bit of extra time. I was thinking around what Tasha was saying was 12, and I did not use a double methodology. I went with my gut. My gut was like 3 days should be enough to get this whole thing knocked out and tested. I also included testing time. Did you guys include testing time?
No.
Okay.
If we include testing time, I could agree with the 3 days.
Yeah. So I figured testing time should be probably. I like to account for like a third of the total development time for testing, and there's a lot of pieces on here that need to be tested and stuff like that. So I think 3 days and we're definition of done.
Okay, so like 32 hours. Is that what I should put?
24 is what it was
24?
what I have, but I'm willing to be talked out of that number. And again, I want to emphasize here, this is a great exercise to do as a team because I think between the four of us, our estimates will be more accurate. So when I'm doing planning, like let's just say someone contracts us for some work and I need to send them the initial proposal, it's not just me that's doing the planning and I'm like, for lack of a better word, like I keep saying this, it's not entirely true, but it's kind of like when you're estimating, sometimes you're guesstimating, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't want to say that we're guessing when we do our pricing, but every time we do pricing and stuff like that, it's going to be an estimate. And so if you have multiple people, you can talk out like when Brandon said 8 hours and I'm saying 3 days, we can have that conversation and we can be like, hey, why do you think it's going to take so long? And then maybe Brandon has some nugget in there that I wasn't considering. And I'm like, oh yeah, that definitely would reduce the time. With the fact that we've already integrated with Data One means that we're already familiar with the API and we've already worked with it. And so there's probably not much overhead there because we've already done it. And so, and then when I did my estimate, I was including some time for testing. And you guys weren't, so that's why our numbers are different. But I think you end up with a more accurate if you do it as a group, more accurate estimate. Anyway,
Agree.
Okay. So then we could do like 20, and that gives like a whole 8-hour data testing based off my time, or we can just go with the 24.
Yeah, let's do 20. I think 20 is reasonable. I think that's a good compromise. Yep.
All right.
This one, we had some complicated logic in here. My estimate came up, or you could have complicated logic because here you need the VIN decode feature, which we've already did in the previous task.
Mm-hmm.
So this task is actually dependent on the previous one. You have to be able to decode the VIN and the purchase date in order to determine what warranties the vehicle is qualified for.
Yeah. And then you gotta send that back to the API to get.
Yeah. So that one would be dependent. So I might move this to another sprint if I was in planning. But since we're just having the general discussion, we'll continue from here. So let's see. Got to validate. Got to decode. Have to. So basically, what we want to get back is the vehicle, and then we get back a list of warranties that they can buy. Let's see. Assuming the VIN decode work is already done. If we do, we got to do the vehicle check or have that logic in. Okay, I got a number.
As I do as well.
I guess I have a number. I'm not great at this.
I know that's why we're having a conversation about this because I think the majority of developers, both senior, mid, and junior level developers, all have the same problem, and no one wants to talk about it. I think it's a conversation we need to have, which is why we're doing this live stream. Hopefully,
Yeah.
people watch it and can see that it's not just you who's struggling coming up with estimations, because, like the title of our podcast, it really depends on so many factors, and when you're doing estimation, you're basically guessing. I don't know how long this is actually going to take till I sit down and write it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right, go ahead,
Tasha,
Charles.
what you got?
Okay. My guess was I did 20 again because it felt like it was going to be similar complexity to the other one. And the fact that we were going to have to check to make sure that there's all these steps where we need to make sure the API is doing what it is supposed to do and returning the things that we need. I felt like testing might take a little bit longer with this one, but like the coding might not take as long. And there might be times where we need to have the developers come back in after the testing if it doesn't test correctly. So that's why I said 20.
So you think there could be some iterations here where we kick it over to test, and then test says, "Oh, I was able to pick this warranty that this vehicle doesn't qualify for," and you have to go in and debug that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I said,
How about-
sorry.
No, go
No,
ahead.
go right ahead.
Okay. I was gonna say I said 30 hours
Oh, okay.
for this, because I figured it would take me personally probably at least almost 2 days to write it all the first time, and then testing, and then they probably like you said, kick it back to me, and I'd have to go in and fix some stuff. So I just added in a buffer for any
Iteration.
errors I probably made.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
Brandon, I was with you. Same line of thinking. I did 32 hours. When I'm doing estimations, I try to. Well, no, sorry. When I'm doing like a proposal, that's different. When I'm doing this type of work and I'm doing estimations, I kind of let things shift on kind of like a 4-hour boundary. So like, because anytime you start work, okay, let's just say we have a task and we think it's going to take an hour. I guarantee you it's going to be half your day. Like, just stuff's going to come up. You're going to get distracted. You're going to have to go to a meeting, or you're going to have to do something or something. And it's going to be, you're going to start at 8, and then before you know it, it's noon and you're not all the way done with it. So I kind of like break my day up into 2 4-hour chunks. And
Okay.
so that being said is why I picked 32. I could see your argument for 32, but I just wanted to end on a full day boundary. So I picked 32. So it would be most of the week if we were doing week sprints. For one resource, or probably 2, because we need a QA resource on this one too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think we can go with Brandon's. I could shave off 2 hours and still be I could see Brandon's argument, so we could definitely do that. Yep.
Okay. And so date of purchase. Date of purchase.
Yep.
Oh, okay. So okay. Yep.
All right, Bill, go ahead and start whenever you're ready.
Yep. I am going for a half day on this one.
Okay.
So 4 hours. I don't think it would be overly hard. I think the comments that Tasha and Brandon made yesterday about being able to use, even if we just assume Bootstrap or whatever, we could get this thing going and kind of reporting. And so your biggest thing is, reading from the database and resetting the data up. Actually, this is a form registration. This isn't editing. So we would just set default to today's date, drop a calendar, be able to type in the numbers. So I could type in 0702, 2023, or I could go to the calendar and select it. I think all those features have been solved. They're already there. So I would say half day on this particular one.
Does anybody disagree with a half day?
Nope.
Okay. Cool.
So 4.
And just like that, we're on warranty holder.
It's testing too. So like actual
Yeah.
development time is probably like 2 hours.
Yep.
If that. I mean, if you can't enter, it would probably be less than that. Anyway.
Better to overestimate than under.
Yep. Oh.
The warranty holder info.
Yeah.
Let's have Brandon start whenever you're ready, man.
Okay, I honestly don't see this one taking that long. I would say like 8 hours max. That's with testing and a buffer for errors, but I really don't see this taking very long. The most complicated
I
part
would,
is validation against the address API.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I would extend it a little bit. I would probably say a day and a half, just to give me
Okay.
some coverage
Yeah,
on
I can agree
the
with that.
API,
Yeah.
especially if it's one I hadn't worked with before, because that takes a little bit of time to go and figure out. So I would say 12.
Yeah. Okay, I agree with that.
12 is also what I said. So is that what
Okay.
we're deciding on?
Okay,
Yeah.
so quick question. How fast could that go sideways? How fast could you blow out 12 hours? What has to go wrong? And how likely is that to actually happen?
If the API didn't work as documented, or you had problems calling the API for JavaScript and you had to switch it over to a server side call, which is typically again what you would do anyway. Let's just make this call on the server and then have the UI call our application, and our application make the request to the API because we have more control over it versus having the browser make an external API request and you have to deal with a whole bunch of security and browser settings and all this other stuff. So it could go south super fast if the API just isn't working the way you're expecting to. However, if it's a published API, I would expect the likelihood of that to be low. But the rest of it's all kind of you do have phone number validation and email validation. Those are solved problems. You can go on Google and say, give me a regular expression that supports all emails. It's like 50,000 lines long, but it will match all of the correct emails. Phone number, same thing. You could use a mask text box for the phone number that only allows numbers to be inputted, and you get the area code, whatever. Oh, do we have to support international phone numbers? Let's assume we're just doing it in the United States for right now because you don't have a specific international requirement. And the international requirement would apply to address too. Some of our customers that we've worked with have customers in Canada, and their zip code's totally different than ours. But we don't have that requirement yet, so we're not going to worry about that until the business says, hey, we want to be able to support people registering contracts in Canada. And so the only huge risk here that could be outside of my direct control would be that call to the API to validate the address.
Okay.
So is it still 12 hours though, or?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
Okay.
12 hours. Like you could bump it to 2 days if you feel like the risk of the API integration is going to be super complicated or something like that. But I would leave it a day and a half. I think would be reasonable.
I just asked to those questions to try to get an idea of the overall risk of the project, like
Yeah.
of what we're planning right now. You know what I mean? Because if we have 3 or 4 things that could go sideways real fast, we can assume that at least 2 of them will.
Yeah. That's I agree with that. And we've identified 2 risks so far.
Yeah.
And they're risks because they're external to us, right?
Right.
We don't control the address API. We don't control the Data One API. Yeah. Okay.
Right. So very low risk, but very high impact.
Yeah.
Okay. And form options. This will be fun.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Tasha, whenever you're ready, let's go ahead and start with you, please.
Okay. I think I'm going to say 16 for this one just because of the variation between the different things that are supposed to pop up with like the different types of variations that can be there, and how that you're going to have the API to reach out for the term drop down, right? So it's going to have to return that, I'm pretty sure. So that's why I said that.
This one is driven from so I select a warranty from the drop down, and then the form option appears. So that's one thing. So we have to tie that part in where basically the form options aren't displayed until a form is selected. That's number one. So that's the work we have to do here. And then from there, one of the things I was thinking about that I think some of the existing systems we've seen when they originally did it, I don't think they kind of thought about it, but if we had a warranty like definition package and we built the we built the UI form options to work off of the definition package. And then anytime you created a new warranty, you had to specify like a JSON definition file of what the options look like. That would take a little bit longer, and not much longer, just a little bit. But if we did that, we then could provide those form definitions for every new form that we create and never have to touch the UI again. And companies constantly put out new warranty types and new forms and that kind of thing. So having that I would build that flexibility up front. That's one of the things that for one of our customers I really wanted to do, but they're migrating over to another platform, so we didn't do it. But so we build the form definition, and then we if we did the form definition JSON package, which worked with the UI, again a little more complicated. I would say like 32 hours for my estimate if we went that way. If we went with just the standard UI and just kind of didn't have when we pulled down the warranties that were valid for the vehicle, if we didn't have a definition and we just kind of had to toggle options and set the UI, and then all that was done in the code, I could probably see 16 hours. But I would sell the customer on the form definition package. Like I would push really hard for that, because in the future they're going to want that. Otherwise, they're going to be in here touching this stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, we want to add this new form, and we need options set up this way. Okay, if it's this form, then toggle this and toggle this and toggle this and toggle this. That's not what we want to do. We want to provide the UI with the definition, and then the UI renders the definition. And it would take longer up front, but you're going to save a bunch of time on the backside doing it that way. So I'll go with 32 hours, assuming we go with the form definition package kind of thing.
And quick question on that, Bill. In a realistic scenario, right? How much time would you actually save on that return?
So,
like an absolute boatload of time, right?
Yeah, a boatload of time, because all you would do is when you add a new form, you would just create the definition file for that form, and then the UI would automatically work. And you would never have to. I can't say never. In most cases, you wouldn't have to touch the UI. You could just say, "Oh, we turn on these options for this form," and then you have your form definition. It has all the terms and whether the term boxes are separate. Like I could set windshield and appearance to different terms. You could build up that form definition, and then as features come up, you can work the form definition, and then the UI just kind of all it gets is these are the options that you need to turn on, and here's the valid values, basically.
They can, in theory, get a decade or more of play out of this form.
Yeah. And then all they have to do when they add a new form is create a new definition file. They don't have to touch the code. Like right now, it would work if you did it the other way. Every time you add a new form, you have to say, oh, if it's this form, then turn this on, turn this off, turn this on, set this to this, set this to this. But if you create a form definition format, then all they have to do is go in and say, okay, we have this new form. Here's what the options look like. And then it just gets rendered in the UI. So that would be the recommendation. It's a little like you were saying, it's a little more time up front, but later on down the road, you just have a lot of flexibility. And normally, I like to code specifically to the requirements, but because we've been in this field, I know for a fact that every form is going to have to be registered, and I know what goes behind the scenes happens when new forms get created on a platform that doesn't have a model like this, and it's a bit more work across the organization to get to roll out a new form. So I'm just going in and clicking, and okay, and I'm done. And
I think I saw Brandon's eye twitching as you were describing that.
Yeah. Brandon knows what it's like.
How about you, Brandon?
I just agree with Bill.
Yeah.
It's hard to not when he's so thorough.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So are we good with 32?
Yeah. Let's do it the right way one time, and then later on they can realize the extra money they paid up front is super flexible later.
Yeah.
You don't always code for flexibility and random edge cases, right? We know this is an edge case or not an edge case. We know that this is something that will be in the future because of work we've done in the past. If I didn't have any experience doing this kind of thing in the past, I would go with coding exactly what the requirements ask for, but I know this is where we'll end up because it always is going to go in this direction. And so I know this from past experience. If you don't know, then you code to the requirements. The requirements are, maybe we have these 5 forms and we're going to code the 5 forms and it's going to work with those 5 forms and we evolve as we move forward and requirements change. But in this particular instance, I know for a fact that the requirements are going to head in this direction eventually at some point. When you have 50 different forms, covering, thousands of different vehicle types and various combinations thereof, you will end up with something. And so having a form definition that drives your UI that you could just, WYSIWYG on a little GUI on the UI and you save it to the database and here's this form and here's its form definition. The form definition goes on the UI. The UI just renders and collects the data. This is where you will end up for this particular problem. So I'm not saying you do that every time. But if you do know, because you have experience in this industry or doing this kind of thing, if you do know where it's going to go to, it's better to push for that end solution right away, and design with that architecture in mind. But a lot of times we don't know, and so we kind of have to evolve into this pattern. But I know from experience that we will start with the original pattern and we will end up here at some point.
With any luck, we catch that in the requirements gathering phase of the project.
Yep. All right. So what do we got total time, T?
Total, let's see. 32 plus 12, that's 44. And then we have 4, that's 48.
60? No, 70. 48. 50.
Yeah, 80.
80, yeah.
And then 100. We have 100 total.
Yeah, 100 hours.
A
So
nice 100.
a little over 2 weeks our guesstimate is a little over 2 weeks to have a fully working, completely customizable warranty registration form.
Yep.
And that total seems reasonable to me.
Yeah. I think it seems reasonable.
And so we came up with this by doing the task decomposition, communicating and talking about the work that we thought was involved, sitting down, and we worked with, and I've never done this model, but it feels like it would be effective, and I'm going to try it on my next project, is we did complexity first, and then we kind of went back and we kind of kept that number in our mind. We think it's an 8, we think it's a 5, we think it's a 3, and then that kind of helped me anyway, feel out the hour estimates. Now, I wasn't exactly mapping the complexity number to hours. I wasn't saying, one complexity is 2.5 hours. I wasn't doing that in my head. I was like, okay, we said this is relatively hard. And so, and then I kind of structured my time framing around that. So it's task decomposition. Then we did the complexity numbers, and then we went back and try to assign hours to it. And I think I'll try and see if I could do this in 100 hours off screen. Obviously, no one wants to watch the code for 100 hours, and see if we can see how close we are to that number. That's the next test, right? And then at the end of that process, we would meet back up in the retrospective, right, Charles? If we come back and say, oh, that took us 160 hours. Like we worked on this for the whole entire month, and or one developer month, right? And then we would, as a team, we would have a discussion, say, why were we so wrong? Oh, Charles was right. The API was just a complete and total bear to work with. And we had, chords problems, and we had all these issues. And we first tried to do it in JavaScript, and we weren't able to make the call from JavaScript. So we had to move it over to the server, and then that didn't work. So we had to move to an Azure function, and we eventually got it. But that's where and then you evaluate that, and then you kind of add that to your list, and then the next time you kind of try to do the estimate or try to estimate a little better. Go ahead.
I would actually suggest we would literally just save this note and put it back up at our retrospective meeting. And I would say, like, if something like that, if we came in at 160 hours, I'm saying we're having at least a 2-day retrospective, if not 3, because we have quite a few things to unpack there. But looking back at these notes, we can tell not necessarily who were right or who was wrong, but if we spotted those problems that might have occurred beforehand, You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
if we just missed them, how close were we with hours to complexity? Was that closer than what our actual hour estimate? You know what I mean? And we would actually go through all of the data that we have provided ourselves to figure out exactly where this particular instance went sideways.
Right. And then if we came in drastically under, right? That's good for the customer, obviously. And maybe we
Absolutely.
finish the form up in 1 or in 2 developer weeks, and we're just all the way done with it, and everything went swimmingly, and we came in significantly under budget on this particular feature. You'd still do the same step, right? Because you were fundamentally wrong. You
Mhm.
overestimated or underestimated. Now, I would say if your estimation within what, like 10-15%, I think that's reasonable, and you could basically kind of count that as an estimation win. What do you guys think? Like 10% plus or minus?
I think that would actually, I feel like it would depend a little bit. It would depend
That's good.
on
Yeah.
how many people are on the team. And it would, I would say that each individual's tenure on the team would have something to do with it. And how well we've been working together as a unit. And honestly, personal stuff. Not that you bring them to the table, but as an example, if I'm having a whole lot of issues personally and I'm dropping balls left, right, and center, well, we work in iterative processes. We're talking about a week. You know what I mean? Anything serious happens in life, it's going to affect the team. So
Yeah.
I would say case by case basis, but primarily if the team is working together consistently, I would say 8%, 10% at most.
Yeah.
If the team's been working together for 3+ years, I would even say probably closer to 5, because to be honest with you, as long as it's not brand new technology, and we would walk into it understanding that from Jump Street.
Yeah.
But as long if it's stuff we all have experience with, and we should doggone well be getting it done in a specific time frame, and we miss it by more than a couple of percent, then I would be almost as interested in the retrospective as I would if we blew it out by 60%.
Yeah. Yep. All right. That sounds good.
All
All
right.
right, team. I think that's good.
Okay, great. Then I will close it out as long as no one else has anything else to say.
No, I'm good.
Okay, fantastic. Then that's it from us today. Join us next week as we explore more tech topics on It Depends. And remember, stay curious and stay integrated. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Have a good weekend.